Thank you, Wendy, for such an interesting presentation. Makes me feel a bit worried if he couldn't get tenure. Got good speakers. They all keep to time. It makes the job of a chair very easy. The last speaker for this afternoon is my colleague, Scott Kiel-Chisholm. Scott's a lecturer here at QUT in the law school, and he's just about to get his PhD at UQ with Professor John Devereux as the principal, no? And Alan Davidson, yes. And currently the PhD is under examination. It's titled Civil Liability Challenges for Neural Interface Devices Reconceptualizing the Law. Scott's a researcher within the IP and Innovation Law Research Program at QUT. He's focusing on regulating life sciences and robotics in the law. Obviously those areas are intertwined with neural interface devices and and have contributed to the work that he's been doing in his PhD research. Scott has established in the teaching context, Scott's established a new online subject called Think Like a Lawyer in the digital world, and it's the foundation subject in our new grad cert in data and new technology law. So today Scott's going to talk about open innovation through open neuroscience and open science.
Thank you, Tina, and thank you, Matthew, also for this opportunity. While I'm not a scientist, I'm a lawyer. It's just terrific to actually talk about McGill University, another colleague university that's actually decided to embark on a 5-year experiment, really, in open science. What I might do, there we go. Okay, so the Neuro, which is called the Montreal Neurological Institute, which is housed at McGill University, basically opened in 1934. So it's been going for quite a while, and is basically one of the largest and most prevalent neuroscientific organisations, institutes in the world, and it's leading the way in open science, and which is great. Wendy introduced this concept of open science, and what was really important was the investment by a family, which is really quite interesting. The Tanenbaum, Larry and Judy Tanenbaum family actually donated $20 million. And as a result, then the Tanenbaum Open Science Institute was opened in December of 2016. Okay, this institute is really to facilitate the open science initiative, but the whole of the Neuro is involved in this initiative, which is fantastic. Now, open science, then what does it mean for the initiative? And basically it's looking at having open data, open materials, and open patents or no patents during this 5-year period.
So open science is a new concept that involves opening up all your data, making it accessible to researchers around the world, firms, universities, other institutes, so that we can accelerate research.
Open science is a way for us to get faster access to knowledge from data. It's all very well having data. What you want is knowledge and ultimately wisdom. The way you do that is making the data available to more people.
Open science in the field of neuroscience, we think is a game changer because it will allow acceleration of discovery. And if the problem is that the brain is complex and discovery is slow because of that, by sharing, we'll be able to go faster. We have 0 treatments, none, that slow the course of any of these diseases, whether they be the dementias or Parkinson's or amyotrophic lateral sclerosis. We have nothing.
Realistically, if we could come up with one really impactful treatment of a major brain disorder, this would be a dream come true.
So what's particularly unique at the Neuro is that not only are we publicizing data, not only are we making samples accessible, but the Neuro has promised not to get patents for a period of 5 years so as not to slow down research.
We don't collect any patient identifiers, no names, no medical record numbers. It's collected in a coded way and stored in an encrypted database. And that encryption uses the same standards as your personal banking system.
Open science allows the exploration of vast amounts of data by many people to generate new questions. And new questions generate new answers.
We think this was going to accelerate discovery, and accelerating discovery will mean finding things that will help people in a concrete way more quickly.
So pretty exciting stuff. The open science innovation is, based, I guess, on the open innovation, open access, open data concepts that have been developing over the last decade. Pretty exciting. There are a number of principles, and I think this is really important too. It builds a little bit on what Wendy was talking about. What does it actually mean, and how do you actually make it happen? What the Neuro did was develop 5 principles that are really, really important, and the basis upon which the Open Science Initiative is to evolve. So let me see if we can get this to go. Oh. Beautiful. This is available on their website, but this is the TOSI guiding principles and the five that I mentioned. So let's go just through them quickly, so I won't spend too much time on them. But the first one here is to share the scientific data and the resources, right? So the Neuro researchers will share all positive and negative, okay? So they're not holding back the negative outcomes, right? Numerical data, models used, the data sources, reagents, algorithms, software, and other scientific resources publicly available no later than the publication date of the first article that relies on this data or resource. The second principle then is the open external research partnerships. So all data and scientific resources generated through the research partnerships, whether with commercial, philanthropic or public sectors, right, are to be released on the same basis as set out in Principle 1. So Principle 3 then is to share the research participants' contributions and protect their rights. So the Neuro's open science clinical, biological, imaging and genetic repository, and they've nicknamed it the CBIG repository, will maximise the long-term value of contributions made by research participants and the scientific resources created by the Neuro researchers and their collaborators. In the conduct of the CBIG repository, the Neuro recognises the primacy of safeguarding the dignity and privacy of patient participants and respecting the rights and duties owed them through the informed consent process. The fourth principle then is do not file patents, and the patents normally locking down the sharing of research data and this idea. This was part of what drove the Neuro or McGill University to this initiative, is the fact that there are often different groups throughout the world working on the same thing, right? And they're not sharing the data, and they're not moving closer and closer to, or very quickly towards outcomes that will actually benefit people who are dealing with neurological disease. Okay, so subject to patient confidentiality and informed consent given, neither the Neuro nor its researchers, right, in their capacity as employees or consultants of the McGill Neuro unit, will obtain patent protection or assert data protection rights in respect of any of their research. And the final principle is the respect for academic autonomy. The Neuro supports the autonomy of its stakeholders, right, including but not limited to researchers, staff, trainees and patients, through recognising their right to decline to participate in research and associated activities under an open science framework. However, and this is the last bit, the kicker, the Neuro will not support activities that compromise the previously outlined open science principles. Okay, I'm just going to have a quick another video of Dr. Guy Rouleau, who's the director of the Neuro, and he's discussing the open science initiative, right, and intellectual property on the CTV news in Montreal.
Researchers compete to develop drugs and technology under tremendous pressure to produce results and to make money. At the Montreal Neurological Institute, they believe there is a better way. It's called open science. Dr. Guy Rouleau is the director of the Neuro, and welcome.
Thank you.
This is a really interesting concept. So instead of this sort of highly competitive, pressurized environment where people basically hoard their information, you have a different way that you think science can be done.
Yeah, we were impressed by the fact that we're not moving very quickly. We're not finding the cures. I mean, I see patients with ALS, and I've been seeing them for 20 years or 30 years, and we have nothing more today than 30 years ago. And so we ended up by thinking, you know, how can we go quicker? How can we improve this track record? And it became obvious, you know, if we share things quicker, more openly, that other people are going to be able to take advantage of that information. There'll be less duplication or triplication, and we should have just better research, more research, and advance more quickly.
So you're saying that there should be transparency, you know, in the research done everywhere, where other people, other researchers will have access to experiments and studies that are being done by other people in other institutions.
No, absolutely. I mean, the advantages are it reduces duplication, triplication. There are hundreds and thousands of examples of something is done in one place and they don't want to share, so it has to be redone, and redone maybe at another place. And that's a waste of resources, and we don't have enough, you know, we need these resources to move forward. So if we're just doubling and tripling things, it's not.
But you use that key term, you know, when they don't want to share.
Yeah.
You know, it's always been believed that there is a value to intellectual property. And you hear of all these arguments that go on about who gets to take credit for certain results. You're asking for a very major cultural shift in how people think about intellectual property.
Absolutely. It's a very big culture change that's needed, because people have been raised on the idea that intellectual property, you have to get it, you have to protect, and that is really counterproductive. I mean, the reality is that our mission, we are funded by the government, and our mission is to create knowledge. That's the mission of a university. It's not to make money, it's to create knowledge. And that knowledge needs then to be applied to, you know, in our case, it's to help patients.
As you know, what you're doing is a great experiment, and a lot of things still have to be worked out. But I guess what a lot of people are going to think is, well, then if you're going to share things, if you're not going to take credit, then how do you get funding? How do you know, how does your career progress? You've got to change everything.
Yeah, you have to change the way people are incentivized, are promoted, and that's part of what we're doing. I mean, we're looking to see how we can change also. I mean, I'm the head of the department as well, the Department of Neurology and Neurosurgery, and in the department we deal with promotions. And then when we do the promotions, we always count all the old things. How many patents, how many this, how many that, and we have to change, because that's not the way science should be done now. I mean, science needs to be done another way.
So what's been the reaction from the scientific community?
Well, you know, we started this at the Neuro, and at first they thought we were crazy. You know, not everybody. Some people believed it already, but most thought we were crazy because it really goes against the culture. It was necessary. We had lectures. People came, gave lectures. We had focus groups. We had town halls. We had a retreat. We did surveys. So it took a year and a half of basically internal discussion, and in the end, everybody was on board. You know, everybody said, yeah, this is really the way to go, even though there are a lot of details that need to be worked out. But it was a long internal process to be able to land there. And I think it's going to be difficult for other institutions to do the same, but I think that, you know, our experiment, I think, will work. And then when we show that it works, I think that others are going to follow.
And you should be flattered because, you know, all good ideas start with people telling you that you're crazy, right?
No, that's happened a lot.
Well, thank you very much, and you'll have to keep us posted on
Thank
how
you very
it goes.
much.
Thanks so much. We'll be right back.
We can see incredible initiative. I mean, the obstacles that needed to be overcome. And after a year of it being in operation, there was an article that had been written, and Guy was one of the authors, and I'll talk a little bit about some of the advice that they have based on 1 year of the project running. But before I do, just to let you know, the Neuro had some benefits or some assets that provided a great platform for them to actually to do this. So they housed clinicians within the institute and the hospital, which is fantastic. They have sophisticated brain imaging facilities. And they also engaged in basic research, right? So they were able to link patient data, samples and cells with clinical research and the high-tech tools. So they had these amazing assets that they were able to actually harness together to provide support for the Open Science initiative. Okay, but there were also, and it was terrific, Jay was talking about open agriculture and the sharing of data, but needing to know what on earth you're hoping to gain by making that data open. And so this was part of the process that the Neuro went through. There are numbers of outcomes that they were looking for. So the first outcome was enhancing the partnerships. So the partnerships, believe it or not, even with commercial entities, right? So they could see that there was an opportunity for the commercial entities to actually enter into collaborative research on this early research, because the information that was going to be shared wasn't going to be locked down in patents, but the application of that information, like in the Human Genome Project, the application of the information could then also be developed into patent protection for the commercial entities. So there's a benefit, and they've actually found that they've been able to link and expand their partnerships with commercial entities, which is terrific. One of the other outcomes, the second outcome they're looking for, is allowing for this knowledge spillover. I guess that they'll draw companies into the Montreal area to develop this complementary downstream application, which seems to be occurring. So the applications, like I said, will be complementary to the core research program. Okay, permitting the partner firms to seek that intellectual property protection. And because that's not sacrificed in the open science principles that they've actually put in place. Okay, they also expected too that there would be cross disciplinary interaction, and that's also occurring, which is fantastic. They had to build, and this I guess took some time, but they had to build new algorithms and apps and innovative software. To be able to link all these things together and to actually be able to share the information across numbers of jurisdictions. So it wasn't something that they could just turn on the switch and off they went. So they've done a great job. The third outcome then is that they believe that the lowering of the transaction costs will occur. So the costs such as contract negotiations and court challenges and intellectual property management that collectively impose serious burdens on the university, right, would actually be avoided. Okay, and so that's one of the goals that they're kind of looking to ensure occurs. The fourth outcome then is quite interesting, is to encourage and intensify the accumulation of sticky, including tacit knowledge. Now, not being a scientist, I had to look up what sticky means, and it's the sort of information and knowledge that requires significant effort to share. And it's often data or information that can't actually be put into words. Yeah. So this open science initiative is going to allow for that sort of sharing of incredibly important data that will hopefully accelerate the treatments or opportunities to be able to treat these neurological diseases. Okay. Part of that is this development of that Neuro's knowledge hub. Okay, so the tools and approaches to analyse and the combination of genetic brain imaging and behavioural data, right? Links between the big data and individual patients, cell lines, clinical expertise. Okay, the creation of knowledge, and then of course, like I was saying, the development of wisdom that enables treatment of these terrible diseases. Okay, these projected outcomes, right, are being pursued by the Neuro Open Science Initiative, and the open science, like Wendy was saying, is not kind of confined to one area. It's a global movement that's occurring. Okay, there are other research organisations like the Allen Brain Institute, the Structural Genomics Consortium, Sage Bionetwork. Those organisations have the same or similar open science principles. All right. What I was going to do was just give you a little bit of a glimpse into how things have been going, or how things were going after the first year. They found that they were able to get that open. What they set up was an open publishing portal. Okay, with international open science publishing partners. Okay, really quite important, because they wanted to not only communicate the positive outcomes but also the negative results. Okay, so really important that could hopefully stop other researchers from making the same or coming up with the same negative results in similar research. Okay. Let me see. There's been a working group established to deal with things like the data sharing across multiple jurisdictions. And from a lawyer's perspective, that's always fun when you're looking at application of laws in different jurisdictions. But the working party was working on that. There's things like ethics approvals. That's been fine. The C bigger repository is obviously it's bringing in tons and tons of data, recruiting data and materials from patients with Parkinson's disease, ALS, neuromuscular disease, and brain tumours, which is terrific. Okie doke. What else we got here? Really quite interesting. If you're interested in the platforms that they're using, the advanced data management system, they're using Loris, and the high performance computing platform they call C-Brain. Not familiar because I'm not a techie either. But yeah, I imagine these are very sophisticated platforms that they're using, which is great to have the outcomes that they're looking for. The lessons that they've come up with, or at least it's really good, because they're saying to other institutions, if you want to go in a similar direction, use your existing assets and strengths, and which is exactly what they did, and I mentioned those earlier. Tailor your open science definition. So, open science, the definition of open science should not be static, should not be inflexible. each institution should be able to design or define what open science is going to mean to them, and obviously develop those principles that will then guide the initiative. Okay, be patient and resilient, because as you heard, not everybody thought that was a great idea, right? They're going to be a bit crazy to actually engage in this, and we'll see obviously at the end of the initiative just how well they did. Be daring. Do not let complexity, skepticism, or operational barriers deviate you from the ultimate goal, which is great. Okay. The last bit here is obviously if you're going to set objectives that you think can be achieved, you need to measure those outcomes to see whether you were successful. All right, so they've actually set up an independent open science evaluation committee to measure the impact of the open science at the Neuro. Now, the committee is also linking with the OECD to define appropriate metrics and evaluate the open science model to identify academic innovation and research policies that promote global economic and social well-being. So these are some of the things that they're going to be measuring. The transparency, which Wendy talked about, right? Is the Neuro living up to its principles and best practices? The effect on research. So do researchers outside of the Neuro make use of the data and materials that the Neuro has made available? They'll also be measuring the effect on institutional norms, because this sort of initiative goes against what is the tradition, and so because humans resist change, they're interested in seeing whether there is going to be some positive effect on the norms. So do other institutions follow in whole or in part the Neuro's lead on open science? They'll look at the internal effects. So does the Neuro attract additional resources, whether human or financial, as a result of the initiative? And they'll also look at the local economic effect. So does the initiative lead to new innovation or jobs in the greater Montreal region? Okay, so that's going to be really interesting to see how well the Neuro does in accomplishing the goals that they were setting out to do. So in summary, the Neuro's Tanenbaum Open Science Institute was created to one, speed up discovery of neuroscience through open partnerships, collaboration and sharing, to establish best practices globally, and to benefit patients affected by neurological diseases by delivering new and improved treatments. Okay, so as a living lab for open science, they're expanding and measuring the research impact, and so that's going to be great. If you're interested, and I don't have my flight book, but Matt might be able to help me here. They're actually holding their inaugural Open Science in Action Symposium, okay, which would be great, and that's on the 18th of November this year. All right, free registration. So I think that's probably of benefit, to me getting over there, Matt. But don't worry, if I can't get there, we can follow online there, and they've given some links. Okay, so they're on the slide, but they're also on their website. So I think fantastic initiative, despite the barriers and the difficulties in being able to convince anybody that open anything is of any value. I think McGill University and the Neuro really should be congratulated. Thank you.